Did you have anything to do with Inside Out?
I did, so I supported that film. I didn't work directly on it, but I helped write all the software that the artists used to make it.
Well, I really love that movie.
So what's your favorite thing that you've worked on in your career?
Yeah, so, it's hard to pick out just one thing. My favorite thing that I've worked on my favorite part of it all is that it's happened. Working in film was a dream of mine since I was very young. I think, around between the ages of 8 and 10, I started to really get the feeling that I wanted to work with computer art in some way. And then it was probably around middle school and beginning of high school where I really started to feel like, wow, I really want to do computer art as a career. And so my favorite part of it all is that this dream has come true. If there were a favorite project, I would say that is probably at this point Inside Out is probably the thing that I've enjoyed working on the most. And a close second to that is I worked on Star Wars, the latest one.
Oh, wow.
And that's probably a close second. So that was the last project I worked on before I left Lucasfilm and joined Pixar.
So what exactly did you do on that film?
So for Star Wars, the X-Wing starfighters?
Yep.
I worked on those. I worked on the models for those ships. And they also had a lot of new technology that they needed to get integrated and set up for that show. And so I helped get that all set up for them. Yeah, and for Inside Out, I work on... So making a film is very complex, and there's hundreds of people involved, and they have to be able to work on the same assets without stomping on each other's work, right? So they need to be able to collaborate, and the system that we use to help them collaborate is called Pipeline, and so I worked on the pipeline for Inside Out.
How did your experiences at Salem High School help you get started and everything?
I tell people this a lot, but I really feel like high school was the thing that set me up for success, and I really mean that. So there were 3 parts to that, and I feel like Salem High was almost like this magical place where these 3 different ideas overlap for me, and I got to kind of combine them all together. So the 3 things are, 1, computer science. So when I was going to Salem High, I graduated in 99, and when I was going there, we had an IB computer science class that was taught by Dr. Gooding, and she was a PhD computer scientist, and it's very rare to have somebody with a PhD teaching high school classes, and so I think that was a big advantage to me. So the first thing is being able to take those computer science classes very early on. And the second thing I'd say was Mr. Campbell's class, because unlike any other teacher I had, he really helped me understand narrative structure and how important story is. And I remember that was a huge source of inspiration for me. And then the third one was the IB art program. So having those 3 things, visual art, story, and computer science, really cemented for me the idea that I wanted to tell stories through computer art. It was a really formative time. I think I'm fortunate in that way. A lot of people look back on high school as like this awkward time.
Yeah.
That might have been difficult, but for me, I loved it. The whole experience was great.
I think Mr. Campbell's flattered that you included him in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm just flattered to know you, Matt. Let's keep going.
Okay.
I feel the same.
What are you working on right now?
So right now, at Pixar, I'm working on the 2 new films coming out. So one is Finding Dory, and the other one is Coco, which is their Day of the Dead film. Yeah, so it's about the tradition of Dia de los Muertos, about remembering your ancestors, because you're not just an isolated individual. Your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and all the way back, all those people help make who you are.
Yeah.
And so it's about remembering them.
Who's influenced you a lot, since we're talking about ancestors in your own family?
Yeah, I think certainly my parents have really influenced who I became. My dad got us our first computer when I was 6, which was, that was back in 1986.
Yeah.
When computers were still very expensive and not a lot of people had them. And having that early access to technology was really important. I was able to start programming at a very young age. And both of them really, they're parents who, I would say, emphasized following my own path,
Mm-hmm.
Not just taking life as it comes, but deciding this is what I want my life to be like.
Right.
And then going after that.
That's good. A lot of parents don't do that, so it's good to know you had some that did.
Yeah, I was very lucky in that way.
Yeah.
I'm curious about just like a timeline from Salem High School to where you are now.
After high school, I spent, so it's kind of a funny story, but I joined the Navy for a while because at the time I was unsure about having a creative career. I wasn't entirely confident about it. And so I thought, well, maybe join the military because military and art are so similar.
Yeah.
So I enlisted in the Navy, and 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to boot camp, they said, hey, your test scores are pretty good, why don't you become an officer? And so that allowed me to go to college, and that's when I started studying computer science post-high school, 2 years, and then, decided, okay, I really want to do some type of art, some creative career full-time. So I left the Navy and I transferred to Virginia Tech, finished up my computer science degree there, and then I went to Savannah College of Art and Design for my master's in fine art. I spent 3 years there, and then I got an internship at Pixar. So I worked really hard on my portfolio and got what they call a demo reel together, which is, a bunch of short films that kind of show your work. And I sent that almost on a whim off to Pixar, and they called me back and invited me out. Oh. So then I, spent 6 months at Pixar in 2005. I worked on the film Cars, and that was my first screen credit. And at that point, I knew, I was like, okay, this is a real thing. This is going to happen.
And then you went from Pixar to Lucasfilm?
Yeah, I finished working on Cars. I finished my internship. And at the time, I had an opportunity to do some fine art in France. Wow. So some of the professors at my school had some nice connections, and so I decided, I'll do that for a bit. So I left Pixar and went to the south of France and did a few art shows there. And then coming back, I knew that I needed a way to support myself, so I had a few connections with Lucasfilm, and they helped me get a job there. So my professors, again, knew a bunch of people. And so I went to Lucasfilm after returning from the fine art world.
So after Lucasfilm, you went back to Pixar?
Yeah, so I was at Lucasfilm for 8 years, and then returned to Pixar, and I've been at Pixar for a year and a half. Okay.
You like it at Pixar? Is it like a good environment and everything like that?
It's a great environment. People are really friendly there. Mm-hmm. It's funny because a lot of times people will say, you might need somebody from somebody in another department, and they'll say, oh, go talk to so-and-so, but just be careful because they're really grumpy.
Yeah.
But even the grumpiest person at Pixar is like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's kind of imaginable since you guys work on, animated films and stuff, which appeal to family audiences for the most part. Yeah. Yeah,
people are pretty family oriented there, and it's not that there's never, sometimes it is really stressful because of the deadlines that we have.
Right.
But everybody there, I think, sees themselves as part of something bigger, because we're creating these stories that are going to last for years and years, and so people are focused on that, on the cultural legacy that we're creating.
So you're all happily married and everything?
Yeah. So I've been married 6 years now. And, my wife she's a former dancer for the San Francisco Ballet. So she also does creative stuff.
Yeah. That's great. Does she help you out with any of your stuff? I know you usually do, computer software and all that, but does she? Yeah.
she helps me all the time. The dialogue that we have about the creative process is really important.
Where do you get a lot of your inspiration from to make all these systems and stuff?
Sorry, could you ask that again?
Where do you get a lot
Cut
of
out a
your
little bit.
inspiration from?
So, definitely. So I look at a lot of fine art. My favorite artist right now is probably Mark Bradford.
Okay.
And I read a lot. I have way too many books in our small apartment. So my wife studies psychology now, and there's one psychologist I really like reading named Carol Dweck, and she writes about the growth mindset, which is about how you can be a lifelong learner, and I really enjoy reading her work. And so I've read, thinking about something that would be fun for somebody else to read. Because I read a lot of things I think that might not be interesting to other people, but so I really like this one philosopher, Gaston Bachelard, and he just writes a lot about why things are beautiful to us.
I remember with great fondness your work with duct tape. You made a duct tape suit, and you had a duct tape wallet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I love both of those.
Yeah, that was for homecoming one year, the homecoming dance. There was this girl I really liked, and I asked her out, and she said yes, and so I was like, okay, I have to have a way to really impress her.
Yeah, so you made a duct tape suit?
I made a suit out of red and white duct tape. And the red and white, so like the red and white stripes alternated diagonally across the whole suit.
Wow, that must have taken a long time.
It took about a week.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Matt comes from a very energetic family.
It was time well spent, I think.
I always hear about people making all sorts of things out of duct tape, but I never meet anyone who does that, so I feel very honored to have met someone who does that.
I like to think that I was the first one to make a duct tape suit.
Yeah.
It kind of became a fad after that.
It did. You probably were.
I think you were definitely a pioneer, Matt.
Yeah. What's your idea of the perfect day, of a perfect day?
Oh, a perfect day.
Yeah.
Waking up and having Eggs Benedict and having my friends and family around. And so I think after breakfast, after this Benedict's feast, I would board an airplane and I would fly to Africa. I think I'd want to go on a safari and see the animals in Africa because I've never been there.
Any part in Africa, like in, particular?
Like the Sahara, maybe? Like in the savannah. I'm not sure where that is, but those large grassy plains with lions and elephants.
And what would the weather be like on your perfect day? Rainy, snowy, warm if you're in Africa, I'm sure. But
well, it'd be warm.
Yeah.
But I can imagine a lot of perfect snowy days too.
Could you tell us some more about some of the software you've created and stuff, some of the systems?
Yeah. So one of my favorite projects it's very technical, but I really enjoyed working on it. Lucasfilm needed to open. Originally they were just in San Francisco, but because of the way that the global economy works, to save money, they need to open studios overseas. And so I built the software that they use to share files across all of the studios that they have now. So they have 4 now: San Francisco, Vancouver, Singapore, and London. And so working on that project was really fulfilling because they can't make the films without that work. And it was really solving a problem that no one had solved before.
Yeah.
Because the idea is similar to Dropbox, but it's much higher capacity.
Okay.
You're just dealing with so many more, like the hundreds of thousands of files every day.
That has to make you feel really accomplished, right?
Yeah, it does. After the projects, projects like that are very difficult, and we actually don't have a lot of money to accomplish them with. But once you get done with them, you feel like, I made a difference. I made a difference in the world. Yeah, and it's amazing how much stuff happens behind the scenes too to create film like the films that you see. Thanks for interviewing me. It's really nice of you guys to think of me. And It's good to see you, Mr. Campbell.
No.
It's good to see you, Matt. We've had a really nice string of interviews the last few years, and so your name just naturally popped up.